right? You know, it's really scary stuff because I read this statistic recently that said that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 30+% of women are single, but it's in the neighborhood of 60% of men.
Really?
Yeah. See if you can find.
Really high.
I know.
In what age
seem
group?
Really high. It's 18 to 49 or something.
Oh,
like
wow.
That. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's young men.
It's a shockingly
high. It doesn't make sense, like why there is such a disparity between the genders. That men are so much more single than women. Like that doesn't even jive.
Yeah. How does that
like
make sense?
Most men are single, most young women are not.
Maybe the guys are just saying they're single, and all the girls are like, "We're in a relationship."
It is just a research, right? So it's just a survey, I would imagine. 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Nearly half of all young adults are single. 34% of women and a whopping 63% of men. Like,
wow.
How does that work? How does it work if there's roughly 50% women, 50% men? How could 34% of women be single and 63% of men be single? It says, not surprisingly, the decline of relationships matches a stride with the decline in sex. The share of sexually active Americans stands at a 30-year low. Around 30% of young men reported in 2019 that they had no sex in the past year, compared to about 20% of young women. Only half of single men are actively seeking relationships or even casual dates, according to Pew. That figure is declining.
This all has knock-on effects for women, and I think the data is also suggesting that the crisis amongst men is causing, in many situations, a crisis for women as well, because we both, men and women exist in an ecosystem that needs to be somewhat balanced. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to talk about the impact this is having on women. One of the things I found interesting was actually because of a young woman came up to me in a bookshop. I was just there looking for my own book, as you do, just because it had just come out. And she said something to me that a lot of women that have approached me or DM'd me have said quite frequently, which is she's over the age of 30 now. Mm-hmm. She's committed much of her life to her career. She's single. Mm-hmm. She's tried dating apps and she doesn't enjoy it. And part of me started to think about the fact she might be caught in a sort of generational gap where they used to meet in person, but now the generation below her meet online. And she concluded what she was saying to me with the fact that she believes, or she's starting to believe, that maybe there's something wrong with her. Because she's over the age of 30, she's single, she can't find a partner. She told me she's never had a boyfriend. Mm-hmm. She's killing it in her career. Mm-hmm. And she was in that bookshop looking for advice from a book. Mm-hmm. And I feel compelled, because I know she listens to this podcast, to ask as many people as I can the question to find an answer for her, because there's someone very close to me in my life who I literally text when I left the bookshop, and I said, I've just met you in the bookshop. Mm-hmm. Every sentence that woman said to me in the bookshop is the exact word for word, even like I've tried going to the gym and that's not working, is the same as a close friend in my life, one of my best friends, has said to me as well. And there's not just one in my personal life, there's 3 or 4.
Well, we all know women, I'm sure this happens to you all the time, really interesting, high character, successful, attractive women, usually in their 30s, sometimes in their 40s, who will say, I can't find anyone to date. And it's not that they can't find anyone to date, it's that they can't find anyone they want to date. And there's some dynamics here. The first is...
Can I just interject to validate your point there? She also said to me, I'm not willing to drop my standards.
Well, and it's like Warren Buffett said, the key to a healthy marriage is low expectations. What's happening is, and I think his name's Chris Williams. He kind of reminds me of you. He's this handsome young podcaster who's blowing by all us old guys. Do you know Chris?
Yeah, I know Chris.
Anyways, he does a fantastic job, and I've learned a lot from him. But he calls it the high heels effect. And that is, every year for the last 50 years, women have become better educated and they're making more money. In urban centers, they've now, under the age of 30, blown by. They're now making more money. More single women in the U.S. own houses than single men. They're getting taller every year. And the reason he uses height is that 50% of women say they won't date a guy shorter than them. It's probably more like 80%. And even if they're not cognizant of it, just anthropologically, subconsciously, they're just usually not attracted to men shorter than them because they have something telling them that this individual is less likely to be able to physically protect you. So you're just at a disadvantage from a height standpoint. Now, metaphorically, women are getting taller every year and men are getting shorter, right? Men mate socioeconomically horizontally and down, women horizontally and up. But when the pool of men who are socioeconomically senior to women, it just means that the quote unquote pool of viable mates for women is going down every year. And women have been told they can have it all. And what I have found is you can't have it all. Or let me put it this way, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once.
You see the ONS data that came out a couple of weeks ago that said for the first time ever since records began, 50.1% of women are childless by 30. So there are more women without children at 30 than there are women with children. The first time ever.
Well, so this is, somebody clipped a part of one of my podcasts, I believe it was, where I was talking about what our society does to 19-year-old women, or 18-year-old women, 19-year-old women. We just lie to them all the time. You know, the first lie is, there's nothing more important than your career, more or less by definition. So that's the first lie. The second lie is, there will be nothing more important to you in your life than your career. So that's the second lie. And then the third lie is, there should be nothing more important in your life than your career. So that's the third lie. And then implicit in that is the idea that children are a burden, and that the idea that women should have children is part of the oppressive patriarchy and should be resisted. And who are men to tell me what I can do with my body? And, hey, fair enough, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, I've worked in female-dominated occupations my entire life. I worked, for example, as a daycare worker way back when, that was like probably 80, something like that. And there were no men doing that, but I really liked kids, and so that was fun. And I worked for social services in Alberta in the child care department, and then I've been working as a psychologist, either training or as a psychologist since then, and that's been a female-dominated enterprise increasingly as the years went by, but even when I first entered it. So I'm in the post-female in the workplace generation firmly. I never experienced the world except as that, and so I've watched women progress through their professional careers at every level of attainment, from the lowest to the highest, and observed what happened, and relatively, I would say, bias-free, because I didn't know. And what I've seen is that as women progress towards their late 20s, there's a psychological transformation, and what happens is that they place less emphasis on their career and way more emphasis, particularly on having a child. And that really reaches a crisis point around 29 or 30 for the vast majority of women, and their attitude flips. And I've seen it flip very dramatically with many women.